Candace Parker and Aliyah Boston just had the Caitlin Clark versus Paige Bueckers debate on their podcast, and their answers are causing absolute chaos in the basketball world. These aren't random fans arguing on Twitter. These are WNBA champions giving their unfiltered opinions on who would actually win head-to-head. And what they said might surprise you more than you think. Before we break down exactly what Candace and Aliyah said and why it's causing so much controversy, tell me in the comments, Team Caitlin or Team Paige? Because after hearing what actual WNBA players think about this matchup, you might change your answer. We saw a WNBA post about 2024 versus 2025 all-rookie teams. Who wins a game to 21? No, I want a full game. And we're going to go down the list. Just kind of tough, not going to lie. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Camila Cordoza, Rickea Jackson, Phoebish versus 2025, which is Paige Bueckers, Sonia Citron, Kiki Irafren, Dominique Malonga, and Janelle Salon. Alright, so Candace Parker and Aliyah Boston just dropped an episode of their podcast where they tackled the debate that's been dominating basketball conversations for months. Caitlin Clark versus Paige Bueckers. And they didn't just casually mention it. They went deep, breaking down matchups, comparing skill sets, and giving their honest opinions on who would win in an actual game. And let me tell you, their takes are causing reactions across the entire basketball community. Ooh, I can't even lie though. Hear me out, I low-key think 2024 would win that. They definitely have. But we're shooting on 2024. The setup for this discussion came from a WNBA social media post that asked a simple question. The 2024 rookie class versus the 2025 rookie class in a game to 21. Who wins? Now, Aliyah immediately had issues with the format, asking why it had to be 21 instead of a full game. Candace explained it's because people play pickup games to 21, but Aliyah wasn't having it. She wanted a full game to really see how things would play out. And honestly, she's got a point. 21 points isn't enough to see how rotations work, how fatigue factors in, or how coaching adjustments change the flow. But let's look at the actual rosters they were comparing, because this is where things get interesting. The 2024 rookie class featured Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Camila Cardoso, Rickea Jackson, and a fifth player. The 2025 rookie class had Paige Bueckers, Sonia Citron, Kiki Irafren, Dominique Malonga, and Janelle Soto. On paper, both teams have serious talent. But the dynamics are completely different, and that's what made this debate so fascinating. Candace immediately pointed out that the 2024 class has more shooting. That's an undeniable advantage. Caitlin Clark is arguably the best shooter in women's basketball. Her range is limitless. Her ability to create her own shot is elite. And having someone like that on your team completely changes how defenses have to operate. They can't sag off. They can't help as aggressively. They have to respect the three-point line in ways that open up everything else for everyone else. Okay, so obviously what the people want to see is Caitlin versus Paige. We're going to do this. Who wins the matchup between Caitlin and Paige? I already know what you're going to say. But then they started breaking down the individual matchups, and this is where the real debate happened. The matchup everyone wants to see, the one that would sell out arenas and break television viewership records, is Caitlin Clark versus Paige Bueckers. These are arguably the two most talented guards to come out of college basketball in the last decade. Both have championship pedigree. Both have massive followings. Both can take over games. So who wins that matchup? Aliyah Boston didn't hesitate. She said, "My girl Caitlin." Now, that's significant for multiple reasons. First, Aliyah plays with Caitlin on the Indiana Fever. She's seen up close what Caitlin can do at the professional level. She knows Caitlin's work ethic, her preparation, her ability to perform under pressure. So this isn't just fandom. This is a teammate vouching for someone she competes with every single day. Second, Aliyah is one of the smartest players in the WNBA. She's not giving hot takes for clicks. When she says Caitlin would win that matchup, she's making an informed assessment based on actual knowledge of both players' games. Candace's reaction was interesting because she clearly expected Aliyah to say Caitlin, But she didn't necessarily disagree, and that's telling. Candace Parker is a Hall of Fame caliber player who's seen every type of talent the WNBA has produced over the past 2 decades. If she's not pushing back hard on the idea that Caitlin beats Paige head-to-head, that says something about how legitimate that take actually is. But let's be real for a second. The Caitlin versus Paige debate isn't just about basketball. It's about narratives, media coverage, fan bases, and the future of women's basketball. These two players represent different paths to success. Caitlin stayed in college for 4 years, built her game methodically, and became the most accomplished college player in history before turning pro. Paige dealt with injuries, had her timeline disrupted, but still maintained her status as one of the most skilled players in the game. Both approaches are valid. Both players are incredible. But the question of who's better head-to-head is always going to generate passionate responses. Then they moved on to the next matchup, Sonia Citron versus Rickea Jackson. Candace said that one's more of a coin toss, and Aliyah agreed. Both players have similar skill sets. Both are versatile wings who can score, defend, and impact winning in multiple ways. But Candace made an interesting point about systems. She noted that we're seeing different skill sets, because Rickea doesn't play in Sonia's system, and Sonia doesn't play in Rickea's system. That's actually a really sophisticated way to think about player evaluation. Because here's the thing. How good a player looks is partially dependent on the system they're playing in. Some systems maximize certain skill sets while minimizing others. Rickea Jackson plays for the Los Angeles Sparks in a system that might not showcase everything she can do. Then came the Angel Reese versus Kiki Iriorfan matchup, and both Candace and Aliyah agreed that would be one hell of a battle. Aliyah specifically said, "That would really be one heck of a matchup," and you could hear the genuine respect in her voice. Because Angel and Kiki both play with incredible physicality, intensity, and motor. Neither one backs down. Neither one takes possessions off. That matchup would be all effort, all energy, all the time. And honestly, that might be the most entertaining matchup of the entire hypothetical game. This is where Aliyah brought up her earlier point about 21 not being enough. She said for a matchup like Angel versus Kiki, you need a full game to really see how it plays out, because in pickup games to 21, things can swing on a few lucky bounces or hot shooting streaks. But over a full 40-minute game, the better player, the smarter player, and the more conditioned player usually wins. So reducing this comparison to a quick game to 21 doesn't do justice to the complexity of these matchups. After going through all the individual battles, Candace declared she's going with the 2024 class. She thinks they would win, primarily because of the shooting advantage and the overall experience level. But then she made a really interesting comment about Dominique Malonga. She said long-term, Dominique might be one of the best post players to ever play in the WNBA. That's incredibly high praise from someone who's played with and against the best post players of the last 20 years. What makes Dominique so special, according to Candace, is her combination of size, skill, and basketball IQ. She's not just big, she's skilled. She can pass. She can finish with both hands. She understands positioning and angles. Those are the traits that translate to sustained success at the professional level. So even though Candace thinks the 2024 class would win right now, she's acknowledging that the 2025 class has players with potentially higher ceilings long-term. Then the conversation took a fun turn. They compared their own rookie classes. Candace's 2008 class included herself, Sylvia Fowles, Candace Wiggins, Nikki Inosuke, and Marti Aujavon. Aliyah's 2023 class had Diamond DeShields, Dorka Uhash, Jordan Horston, and Lee Ueru. Aliyah tried to be diplomatic at first, saying she rides for her squad. But then Candace pressed her, asking if she'd be telling the truth if she said the 2023 class would win. And Aliyah's response was perfect. She said, "I would be lying, and I would hate to get up on this pod and start lying." That's the kind of honesty that makes these conversations valuable. She could have given some corporate answer about how both classes are talented and it could go either way. But instead, she kept it real. The 2008 class was absolutely stacked. Multiple Hall of Famers, multiple championships, multiple MVPs. The 2023 class has talent, but they're not on that level yet and might never be. Candace tried to give Aliyah some credit by pointing out that we've seen how the 2008 careers panned out, while the 2023 class is only 2 years in. Jordan Horston got hurt, so we don't know what she could have become. Diamond DeShields has dealt with injuries and trades that disrupted her development. But even with those caveats, the gap between those two classes is pretty obvious to anyone being honest. What's interesting about this entire conversation is how it reveals the way professional players think about talent evaluation. They're not just looking at stats or highlights, they're considering systems, matchups, physical tools, basketball IQ, work ethic, and potential. When Candace and Aliyah debate whether Caitlin beats Paige, they're not just arguing about who scored more points or who has better handles. They're thinking about who would actually win in a competitive setting where both players are fully motivated and prepared. The fact that Aliyah chose Caitlin without hesitation tells us something important. She's not being a homer, she's making an assessment based on playing with Caitlin every single day. She's seen Caitlin prepare for games. She's seen Caitlin adjust to defenses. She's seen Caitlin perform in clutch moments, and based on all of that first-hand experience, she thinks Caitlin would win that matchup. That carries way more weight than some talking head on television who's never played professional basketball giving their opinion. But what's also important is that this debate exists at all. The fact that we're comparing rookie classes and debating individual matchups shows how healthy women's basketball is right now. These conversations are happening because people care. Fans are invested. Media is paying attention. And players themselves are engaging with these debates in thoughtful, entertaining ways. The Caitlin versus Paige debate specifically has become the defining rivalry of this generation of women's basketball. It's similar to the Bird versus Magic debates that defined the NBA in the 1980s. These aren't just great players. They're cultural figures who represent different styles, different approaches, and different fan bases. And just like Bird versus Magic, this debate will probably never be fully settled because both players have legitimate cases for being the best. What Candace and Aliyah's conversation really highlighted is that there are multiple factors to consider in these matchups. Shooting matters, athleticism matters, basketball IQ matters, system fit matters, chemistry matters, experience matters. You can't just compare scoring averages and declare a winner. Basketball is too complex for that. And the best evaluators, the people who've played at the highest levels, understand that complexity in ways that casual fans might not fully appreciate. The comment about Dominique Malonga potentially being one of the best post players in WNBA history also shows how these players are thinking long-term. They're not just evaluating who's good right now. They're projecting careers. They're identifying traits that typically lead to sustained excellence. And when someone with Candace Parker's resume says a player has that kind of potential, people should pay attention. What's also refreshing about this conversation is the honesty. Aliyah could have played it safe and refused to pick between Caitlin and Paige. She could have given some diplomatic answer about how they're both great and it depends on the day. But she didn't. She made a choice and stood by it. That's the kind of authentic content that fans crave but rarely get from professional athletes who are usually coached to avoid controversy. The broader point here is that these debates matter because they generate interest in the sport. When Candace Parker and Aliyah Boston are having these conversations on their podcast, they're creating content that gets shared, discussed, and debated across social media. That drives engagement. That brings new fans to the sport. That increases the visibility of women's basketball. So even though it's just a hypothetical debate about rookie classes, it's actually serving a larger purpose in growing the game. So there you have it. Candace Parker and Aliyah Boston weighed in on Caitlin versus Paige, and Aliyah chose Caitlin without hesitation. Do you agree with her assessment, or is Paige still your pick?